Well, hello everyone. This is Ranger Rob, and welcome to the Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast. This is episode 13, so we're kind of a new show, and I have a guest today. And the guest is, I'll be bringing him on in a second, but I want to review really quick a couple of things. The Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast can be listened to on several platforms in audio form. You'll find it on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all kinds of platforms, including Alexa. And if you ever want to catch the show, get through all the different episodes, kick back, turn on your podcast machine, whatever you're listening to, and figure out what your favorite station is, and just look for Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast. And it's supposed to be a weekly show, but occasionally I have a hard time remembering to do a show, or I get kind of busy, and sometimes I don't get all the shows done once a week, but we're getting there. So I want to thank everybody that does come to the show. And if I was a little more consistent, I'm sure I would get more guests. But today is important because I have a gentleman, and I'll bring him on the screen here in a second. I have a gentleman with me. His name's John Smith, which is a very good friend of mine. And he has his own podcast and does a show called Backyard Politics. And the reason I really think he's important because on our show, we talk about homesteading and animals and things like that, and then also prepping. And so a lot of times I try to my best to explain why, but his show every week, or sometimes he does more in one show, every week he talks about conservative politics, basically telling us the things that are going on that should trying to make us aware of situations that are going on for us to be able to overcome hardship. And so having him on the show today will be really great because he's the person that keeps on top of issues that I talk about a lot of times, but I don't get to study him like he does. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to John Smith. How are you?
Hey, good, Ranger Rob. How are you doing? And thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, you bet. You've had me on your show a couple of times, and I really appreciate that. And how often do you do your show?
I do my show twice a week. It's Monday nights and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Arizona time. And I say Arizona time because we never change the clocks, and it's very confusing unless you live in Arizona.
So right now you're Mountain Time.
That's right. Right now we're Mountain Time, and then in the summer we switch over to Pacific Time.
Pacific, yeah.
So
well, I live down there, so I had to. Anytime I was doing my radio stations and stuff, I'd have to change all my advertising later on because it used to be I'd have to put like Mountain Time, and then 6 months later I'd have to say no, it's Pacific now.
Yeah,
and it was kind of a pain, but yeah. So today we'll be kind of talking about homesteading. And we talk about homesteading, we talk about prepping, we talk about self-reliance, we talk about animals, animal care, preserving food. I did bring some samples of something you might be very interested in. Excuse me, man. Gosh, I got to quit smoking cigars. Kidding. Well, I don't. Well, I kind of still smoke, but in a way. No. Anyway, getting back to that. So yeah, we're not fanatics. You don't see us walking around like Rambo over here. But we do talk about kind of don't let the world take advantage of you. Otherwise, kind of be on top of things. And I know your show, that's what you do every week is kind of see what's going on. And I know you try to keep a little bit more focused towards Arizona, but every time I watch your show, you can't help but be more national because they're all tied together.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
difficult because sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, sorry. I was just as we go here. That's why I'm kind of really reaching out to you is you'll know more in-depth information as we talk about different subjects on the show today. We got a 1-hour show, and if you have to leave early, I kind of caught John at the last minute. He was so. In fact, I've been trying to get you on the show for like a month. So if you have to head out or anything comes up, you just let me know because I know this was a last minute invite. So anyway, I am very grateful very, very grateful. And this is a brand new show, so people kind of stumble onto our live stream as we go here, but a lot of our interaction is actually after the show. So unlike your show, which your chat just goes nuts, it's hard to keep up.
Well, so, politics is it's kind of a triggering topic, right? It doesn't make a difference if you agree with what the host is talking about or you disagree. A lot of what's going on in America just is triggering people, and it's a lot of people are upset, and it seems to me that there's a clear differentiator now. Like before, it seemed like it was kind of hard to tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican or a liberal and a conservative, but now it just seems that the country is so divided that any topic, even Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, right, this whole trial, it's clear that the conservatives are on the side of self-defense and the right to use the Second Amendment, and the left is they're just absolutely opposed to this kid. They don't believe that he had any right to be there, and he shouldn't have been there, and he certainly shouldn't have brought a gun. He shouldn't have defended himself. And so it's a very clear division, right? And it seems to be that way with everything now.
That's for sure. I know I'll do, like, my show will do a lot of homesteading and talking about what we're doing and stuff, but occasionally I have points in my show where I'll kind of point out something that I've observed or heard another homestead channel talk about, and then I'll go into that subject, and I get some of the craziest comments like, that's not what I meant. It's like you're reading in between the lines, and what in the old days, that funny word called common sense. Really, I just try to have a channel of common sense. And, common sense means, if food's getting a little hard to get or there's shortages, then you take an active approach to kind of fix that. Yeah. Not, sit there and rant all day long about how bad it is. Our attitude is, okay, here's the facts. Perhaps maybe you should put a few more things in the pantry or something like that. But I want to show you something that's fascinating, if you don't mind. I know you ask about our homestead all the time. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about how we preserve eggs. Have I ever talked to you about that before?
Well, we've talked about basic stuff as far as I think you freeze dry the eggs, and you crack them open into little freeze bags, and you stack them on top of one another in the freezer. And so there's a lot of different things that you can do, right?
Yeah, you're picking up on this stuff.
Hey,
so I thought I'd show you
every day. That's the first thing I do.
I brought a sample.
Oh, nice.
This is probably 50 eggs, and they're raw 50 raw eggs, easy. That would feed your family for weeks. And so what this is you take eggs, you scramble them up like you're going to make scrambled eggs, right? Mm-hmm. And you put them in the little trays of our freeze dryer, and then we run them through the freeze dryer. It takes about 30 hours. And then it looks, when you take it out, it kind of looks like peanut brittle. And, but it kind of breaks apart really easy. Then you just put it into a little bullet blender and turn it to powder. And so for every 2 teaspoons equals an egg. And so when you take 2 teaspoons of this and add 2 teaspoons of water, it looks exactly the same as when you started. I mean, the texture, the bubbles, the whole look of what scrambled eggs look like is what it looks like. And then it cooks like day one and tastes like day one, because you only lose like 3 to 4% of the nutrients in freeze drying as you do in freezing and the other processes. So, so you can imagine Sherry and I have been getting eggs for a year now, and we do 48 eggs a week. So you can't imagine. So we don't usually put it in a jar. We put them in these things, Mylar bags. And so you can imagine this is 1 week's worth of eggs, 48 eggs. And we were doing this for a year. So how many bags do you think I got of these? About 52.
Wow.
I'm ready for the apocalypse by maybe just eating eggs,
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. As long as you have good air filtration in your home.
That's right. And kind of. I'm working on it. But yeah, this is what it looks like. It's just a powder. And we show people this, and the first thing they go, "Can you make me a sample?" So this is our sample jar when people come over, and we give them, "You want to try some of our eggs?" And so this is how we do it. But it's an amazing process. Now, there's other ways to do eggs. I mean, you can put them in, scramble them raw again and freeze them just like that, and put them in a plastic bag and just make sure they're flat so you have lots of room in your freezer. And there's another way which kind of scares me is people use lime, same stuff they
Yeah.
use for concrete and stuff, and you can put them in a lime mixture, and they'll keep raw eggs in a big 5-gallon bucket for a year, and before they start kind of getting soft and not so good. But I don't trust that process. I am not doing that.
No,
But
I think the freeze dry is the way to go, I think.
yeah. So anyway, this kind of ties in that, this is homesteading. This is making sure you can store and preserve the food you grow, including eggs. And eggs was always perplexing to me in the old days, but ever since we got the freeze dryer, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, we've got, I don't want to be just eating eggs the whole times during a shit hits the fan kind of situation, but we're not going to starve.
No, I was going to say it's better than going hungry for sure.
Yeah. And you can use, and if you're baking cakes or doing anything with eggs, you still use that. It's the same thing. It's, if you need a 1 egg for your cake batter or whatever, just 2 tablespoons of that, mix it in water and pour it into your recipe. You're set to go. So anyway, I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So I thought I'd pull that out for you.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love it.
So you and I have known each other a lot of time, and as some people catch this show, they'll also realize that a lot of times you're on the show, she said, he said. Mm-hmm. And so over the years or so, especially in Arizona, you've got a different scenario and climate. Have you changed your habits at all as far as, I'm not saying you had bad habits in the first place, but in the last year or so, have you been more aware, or have you been taking more action of being a little bit more on the, I don't know, just being prepared side?
Yeah, we have. Anytime we go to Costco at least once or twice a month. And anytime we go to Costco, whether we need it or not, we always buy the maximum or amount of bottled water, right? We want to make sure that we have bottled water available. So we're stacking cases and cases of bottled water because it lasts, right? It's not something that goes bad, and it's something that you need to survive. So we have water. We've been kind of getting a little bit smarter with canned goods too. So if we go to the store, because it's not that expensive, right? So you can get a can of several cans of green beans, several cans of peas, several cans, whatever. And that type of stuff lasts a long time. We have a chest freezer. So we've been buying at Costco just large bags of frozen vegetables. And so we've been freezing frozen vegetables. And so we have a pretty decent size, chest freezer that we're filling with a lot of chicken and a lot of vegetables as well. So we've
been doing a lot of chicken.
Yeah. So we don't have months and months and months of supplies, but if something was to happen, if the power grid was to go down and, the grocery stores had to close or whatever the case is, if the power grid went down for a week or two, we know that we would be able to survive. We would have water. We would have the basics, the chicken, eggs. We don't have as many eggs as I'd like. I wish I had a dehydrator. I'll be honest with you. I'd love to do that.
Hey, we could do some bartering.
Yeah. But we have vegetables and chicken and some beef, we ground beef at Costco. Again, you can buy the big 5-pound pack of ground beef. And, so you can be smart with ground beef. It can go a long way if you cook a little ground beef in with some vegetables and things like that. So we're trying to be smart in that regard. Just
Yeah.
we where I live, we rent our home. We haven't purchased our home, and so we're looking for property, and we're looking to purchase because I would like at least an acre of property so that I can start doing the chicken thing and
Yeah.
start actually homesteading. But
Yeah. I
right
mean,
now we're kind of in that prep mode. Yeah.
there's people making millions off their property with 2 acres.
I know.
It's like truly amazing.
Yeah.
People just don't realize what they can do in a small yard. So, and acre's not small as far as your average person having an acre is a miracle. Yeah. That'll be kind of neat. That'll give you a chance if you come up here. I know you were talking about coming up this spring, next spring, and it's a great opportunity to see what it's like in this area. Although you hear a lot of politics from our west side, the east side is a purely red.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
Yeah, it's not Portland by any means, right?
No, not even close. And we just over here we're just kind of going, is Portland part of Oregon? It's like we don't act like that over here.
No,
anyway,
there are a bunch of crazy people over there.
Yeah, and it's actually I was just watching something the other day, surprised the heck out of me that some of the top 10 or 20 states the homestead in or do what we're doing is actually one of them is Oregon.
Wow.
I was like, where did that come from? Well, it has to do with the taxes and stuff like that. But anyway, it'll be kind of neat to have you see what this region is like.
Yeah, I would love to. We're very excited about coming up, and I just want to see your whole operation because when you see things on video, it's always different, right? Than when you actually see the whole operation in person. But I'm very excited about it, and I'm excited to meet your 4 little pigs. If there's 4 there when I get there, right?
Because if one's not there, that means you're going to be eating them for breakfast.
That sounds delicious.
You probably just saw the video. It came out that we just got our 4th pig.
Yeah.
And this is, it's kind of funny. I've been a techie guy. I came from high tech. I worked in aerospace, and now I'm kind of like, Mr. Mountain Man. And it's definitely a new world. And it's like sometimes you kind of, for years, or you're in the industry and you're in the city and you're doing all that stuff, you don't realize how techie or how much information and knowledge it takes to do this stuff. So, I'll go into something thinking, well, I'm a pretty smart guy. I can do this stuff. Jeez, I get these pigs like, what the heck? What's this problem? How do I do this? How do I do that? I'm just an idiot. And luckily I'm surrounded by a lot of smart people. And turns out I've met a lot of great engineers in my life, electrical, mechanical, airplane industry kind of people, brilliant. But but you get across the fence and get over this side of the world, and they're idiots. It's just they don't know the basics of growing things and having animals and stuff. So my head's ready to explode with all these new things I'm learning, and you'll kind of see that's kind of like why we like to do the daily videos, is to kind of tell people it's an ongoing thing. I just don't put pigs in the backyard and forget them, or I don't put chickens back there and forget them or whatever. It's like it's an ongoing process. It's a commitment. And it
really is. And it gives you kind of a whole new respect, I think, when you do something like that for the people that settled the country, right? The people
totally.
Man, I'll tell you what, you think about like how they raised their pigs and their chickens and their cattle and their horses, and they did it. They didn't have a local Walmart to go down to buy the feed, and they didn't have, so everything, it just puts things into perspective. And it's remarkable what the human being can do to survive.
Yeah. The other thing that perplexes me is like if we were in a where we're having blackouts, or maybe we didn't have power, or we had something like that happen, or a lack of water, and I've got these animals. I'm so used to the fact that I can go to the feed store and get what I want. Can
Right.
I sustain these animals? And that's what I'm trying to learn how to do is, can I supplement these animals with stuff that's already on the homestead? And I'm finding out in a lot of cases I can, and I never thought of that before. So having your garden not only feeds you, it actually is a resource for your animals too. And you just never
Mhm.
thought about it that way. So the cycle of life is amazing. And I swear I've gotten closer to God just learning this, understanding the perplexity of the earth and nature and all this and how we play a role in it. Um, I swear in the last 2 years, I feel like I've gotten closer to my creator too, saying, "Wow, you have created an amazing thing here." and
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the way everything, because you think about the settlers back in the day, they didn't have electricity, right? They didn't
yeah,
have the ability to hire a well company to come out and dig a 400-foot well. They did all of that stuff on their own. They did all of that with their own tools, and everything was, you a good way to really get perspective is to go to like an Amish farm and watch these guys and what they
those guys are
do.
amazing.
I mean, with hand augers and the wooden dials, and you think about these unbelievable barns that they build, and there's not a single metal nail. Everything is,
Yeah,
locked into place and hammered together with dial rods, and it's all done by hand. It's phenomenal, and those barns will last Ranger Rob for 400 years.
yeah. I need them to build me one.
Yeah, and they would come out and build you one for sure.
So, one of the subjects one of my videos will be out in about 2 or 3 days. My new subject that I'm kind of piggybacking off another homestead channel was, now that winter's here and there's all kinds of new subjects that I didn't think I had, but are coming up because um, every time I go out now when it's freezing temperatures, I'm getting um, surprised at the things that I may have overlooked. but but the show I was talking about, I think it was called Roots and Refuge. She was talking about this time of year is the time that people should help take the time to develop their skills. And she didn't want to put it in a prepping mode. She was just saying a natural, for example, this is a great time of year between now and spring if you're going to start doing some gardening and stuff to learn how to do your canning, how to learn how to do pressure canning, how to do dehydration, how to can meat or jar meat, and learn your new skills this time of year. Because if you decide to go into homesteading or form it doesn't even have you don't even have to use the word homesteading, just being more self-reliant, then you don't want to make your mistakes on your stuff. You know what
Right.
I mean? You grow tons of beans and then you don't know how to can right, and you lose half the beans that you grew. That would kind of break your heart. So this is a great time right now to say, I've never really learned how to do water bath canning, or I never learned how to use, and of course you got to buy equipment to do it. You got to buy the canners and all that stuff. This is the best time to do it because you got a little more time in your hands. You're going to be indoors more. And if you need the practice, go to your grocery store and buy a dozen cucumbers and make your first jar of pickles, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a
And
great idea. Yeah.
so I thought that was good advice on their part. And I was like, I want to pass that on too, is what do you do this time of year? Because obviously I'm not walking out to this beautiful garden anymore. It looks like a graveyard now. Anyway, but it's like, but wow, what a great time to, hey, I've never really learned how to make chili, or I've never made my own split pea soup before in a crock pot or something. This is a great time of year to do it. 'Cause, what, besides a good football game in the weekend, I mean, what else,
Yeah.
why not learn how to cook something? And then when summer comes and spring comes, you've got these new skills, brand new skills, which are brand new to me and Sherry. And I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't suggest myself, but so what was really cool is Sherry and I learned a little bit about canning and stuff when we were in Arizona before we moved up here. We were just kind of wondering how to do it. And now we're up here and we got this first garden that came through. Not perfect, but we got a lot of produce. And we are already 3/4 of the way there already. We already knew how to do some of the stuff. We just had to get a few more jars. We had to get a couple different kind of pots. We learned better processes, how to squeeze tomatoes and stuff. But I'm so grateful that we did it ahead of time, so I wasn't doing it all at once. Because you got the expense of setting up new gardens, but you don't also want the expense of also buying a $150 pressure cooker and all these different things. So this, if you get the people in the mindset saying this is an exciting time of year, this is the time you could home in on your self-reliance. And so I kind of wanted to put that in this show of now you guys in Arizona, you don't even know what winter is. 70 degrees.
No, but I am from Pittsburgh originally, so I've had my share of winter for sure.
And then another show I got, I don't know if you probably saw it. I had a show that I called Homestead Fashion. And I was complaining. It's like, I don't think I fit the part because I don't have the overalls and stuff. And so I'm happy to say I bought my first mud boots.
Nice.
I'm getting up in the world of homesteading. I've got mud boots now. All I need is the bib overalls, and I'm set.
Very good. And you could probably go to the local tractor store, right? The farm store, and pick yourself up some.
All 3 or 4 of them here.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, I need some Carhartts now, and I'll be set. So, yeah, pretty funny stuff. But yeah, that's I just want to kind of start this show off with that. Develop your skills attitude. Take advantage of this, of things that you've been going, gosh, I've never learned how to make chili before. Or I've never made my own spaghetti sauce. Well, and so go buy it. Go buy a couple dozens of things and try it. And so if you lose it or fail, you're gonna fail if you do.
The thing too, like people say, well, I don't want to make a big pot of chili. It's just my wife and I, or just my husband and I. But you can freeze chili.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You can get yourself some good freezer bags, or get yourself, some good Tupperware, that not the cheap stuff, but get some nice stuff.
Yeah.
And you can put that away and you can freeze that in individual servings, or servings, for the 2 of you. So if you decide 2 weeks from now or a month from now, you want to have chili, you don't have to go through the process of making it again. Right?
Totally. Yep.
Just freeze it and make as much as you can the first time. You can do that with soup. And I'm sure you can probably dehydrate soup too, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, we did an experiment. I like to make my own chicken soup, and if you look at the playlist of Cooking with Ranger Rob, my latest one was how to make my chicken a hearty chicken soup. Mm-hmm. And I always end up making 6 cups or more. It turns out to be almost it's a pretty big pot of soup, right? And this is just me and Sherry, right?
Yeah.
So we like, let's try to freeze dry it, right? So we did 2 experimental sheets of my soup in the freeze dryer, and it came out perfect. I mean, it was just amazing what it looked like. It was all powdery, of course, and it was all, every piece of chicken, everything was the same, but it was dried out. Anyways, and we put it in a Mylar bag like you saw here, like this. And on these, we usually put one of those oxygen eliminator things in there, observer. Yeah. In these, there's a proper name, I can't remember. Anyway, so about a month later, we pulled that out. And Sherry pulled it out, added what she thought was appropriate for water for it, and we heated it up, and it was like day one. I couldn't believe it. It tasted like my fresh chicken soup. And so we did the same thing. We made a giant pot of chili, and we did the same thing. We ate what we could do, and we had all this left over. And Sherry actually gets mad if we use too much of it because she goes, "I wanted to freeze dry some of that, Rob." So anyway, so now we don't hesitate to make those big servings because now we can freeze dry it. And we do freeze a lot of our stuff too.
Yeah.
And so you got a great point there, and especially, a freeze dryer, it's definitely a chunk of change, but I can tell you one thing, it's worth every penny if you could afford to get one. And Harvest Right, by the way, does have a lease program where you can kind of do what you call a payment program to actually, to get your first freeze dryer. It's a really neat program, and a lot of people utilize it. So you can make payments until it's paid for, and then they deliver it to you. And it's a really good program. So I don't think there's interest either.
Oh, wow. Yeah. See, that's what a lot of people don't understand. And so, our families today, the American family relies on fast food or pizza or eating out, whatever the case is. And if you think about it, even if you just take a family of 4 and you go to McDonald's, you're going to spend $40 for garbage food.
Yeah.
For garbage food, right? If you go to a place like Neater's or something a little bit nicer, you're going to spend probably between $50 and $60. And so you can make a huge pot of chili that can feed your family of 4, probably 4 times.
I know, it's amazing.
For a third of that price. And so put the rest of that money, start investing into your future. Someone told me, and I live by this, do something today that your future self will appreciate. So start putting that extra money towards a dehydrator or something like that, and just start being smart about the future, because if anybody's paying attention, here in Arizona, I'll say, the gasoline costs. I don't know what gasoline costs up in Oregon. I know it's expensive in Oregon because you actually have to have someone pump your gas up there, right?
Yeah, that's not too much off, but it's definitely higher than yours.
Yeah, so we're looking at we're $3.79, I think, is what the average gasoline is here.
That's how much I just paid for my truck.
Yeah, and so every time you take a trip to the grocery store or you take a trip to the restaurant to eat and you're packing your kids in and you're running all over town, that's costing you almost $4 a gallon of gas. And so be smart, stay home.
Yeah.
Go to the grocery store, buy enough food that you can make in bulk and freeze it or, freeze dry it or dehydrate, whatever you need to do. But be smart about it, because in 5 years from now, if this economy continues to go the way it's going, you may not be able to afford to put any gas in your car. And what are you going to do?
Yeah. And I heard another philosophy of, I've never really thought about it before, but food can be as good as an asset or a commodity, if you think about it. For example, I bought my, I did a co-op on a beef. I got a quarter of a beef when I first moved here.
Oh yeah.
And I think Sherry and I did the math, and it came out to about just over $5 a pound. And so now that same beef a year later is what? $14 to $19 a pound. Was that a good investment or not?
Man, I'll tell you what. And it's not going to go down anytime soon.
Oh, I know. So you can almost look at food as, if you're in a bartering mode, what you put away today could be worth a lot of money for something to trade later. I've got this beef that I only paid $5 for. It's worth $20 now. It's like, hey, you want to trade me a car tire?
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about what's it cost for like a dozen eggs now. I don't really know for sure.
It's amazing how high that's gone up.
Yeah, the eggs are very expensive. And so you think about a mason jar that you had in your hand, you had about 50 eggs in there. Right? Yeah. 50 eggs. Now, if you were to buy 50 eggs in cartons, you're talking quite a bit of space.
Yes.
In your refrigerator. This is 50 eggs on your shelf somewhere. It could be in your basement. It can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be.
Could you imagine what I could, if times
what
were
you could
tough,
sell that for?
Yeah, I could almost probably get an ounce of silver for this.
Yeah.
or more, maybe 2 ounces.
Yeah, or you could trade it for, you can barter it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
would do with it. Is somebody's over next door and they're growing some really nice watermelons over there. I don't do watermelons. I'd be willing, let's trade some eggs for watermelon.
Yeah.
You know,
And it
works.
doesn't have to be dollar for dollar and stuff like that, because that's, sometimes you win, so, maybe you make out, maybe sometimes the other person makes out, but that's how you
Yeah.
build relationships with your neighbors. And, like America used to be, Rob, we used to know our
Oh, yeah.
neighbors. We used to trust our neighbors. We used to ask our neighbors to help raise our kids, right? You see my kid doing something stupid, give him a smack upside the head.
Yep. I totally remember that.
Yeah, that's
Good
how I
old
was
days.
raised. Yeah, and you and I were raised in that, and we respected each other, right? We grew up with
We
respect.
expected our neighbors too, because we knew that they
Yeah.
had permission to smack us.
That's right. That's right. Now you go up to say something to a kid at a park for, I'll give you an example. I was at the park today, and there were kids. I go down on Wednesday nights and I play basketball at a local park. And there was a bunch of kids, and every other word out of their mouth was either the N word or the F word. And then meanwhile, there's little kids that are playing on the playground around them and stuff like that, So I walked over and I said, "Hey guys, listen, I know, you're out playing basketball, you're out having fun, but can you just tone it down a little bit with the language, just because of the kids? There's kids, little kids here."
Yeah.
F you, grandpa. That's what I heard.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's what I got in return, Rob. And back in the day, I would have walked over.
Someone called you grandpa too.
I know, the gray, but back in the day, if that would have happened, if I would have said that, the guy would have come over and slapped me across the head, and then would have dragged me by my hair to my parent, and then my parents would have beat me silly.
I know, such a different world,
man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. So on kind of the subject, we're kind of still on that subject, but in your opinion, since you kind of follow a lot of stuff, where do you think this shortage situation is going to go? I mean, and what do you think is truly the cause of it?
I think the cause of it, and I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but I believe that the cause of this.
We got to watch some of our key words, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's it's a planned issue. I believe that there's bad people in this country that have a lot of power, and I'm not talking just the politicians. I'm talking about some of these very extremely wealthy billionaire CEOs, and they want to see this country become more socialist. And so that they're working with bad actors in the government to cause problems in what's called the Great Reset. They want to see the entire economy be reset. They want to get away from capitalism, and they want to fundamentally get into true socialism in this country and across the world. They want people to live in small homes on small lots of land and just do what they're told. And they go to this job, or they go to their work, they do their job, and they come home. And if you're a good little socialist, we'll send you a nice little check in the mail, and you'll get a couple extra bucks from Uncle Sam. But they just want everyone to live. Freedom is almost a thing of the past. So I think what's going on is it's manufactured. There's no reason why all of these ships should be stuck out in the Pacific Ocean.
Agreed.
And then when these ships are coming into these ports, they're emptying these big cargo ships, and then they're just leaving this cargo piled up in these containers. And now just hordes of homeless people in California are busting into these cargo containers and stealing everything. So why? That's something that could be fixed overnight. I think if a certain president was to come back into office, all of this would go away. All of these problems would go away. And so I think it's a manufactured crisis, and I think it has, the bad actors have ulterior motives, and they act as if it's not an issue because it doesn't impact them.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I do know I totally agree with you, and I do follow all this as probably close as you do, but you're deeper. Um, I see where they're going, and I see that they're going to be doing this, but all the numbers, all the statistics, everything's showing that by 2022 and by 2024, we're going to kick their asses out of there. So you
Let's
wonder
hope so.
what's their inspiration, because that they know they're getting bad statistics, they're getting bad analytics, they're getting bad support, they're not liked by the majority. Even their own parties are turning against them. And when that 2022 comes along and 2024 comes along, and it power switches, are they doing stuff that's going to stay permanently with us, or can it be reversed? I mean, what's the purpose of doing all this if in 2022, when we get better Congresses and better senators and stuff, what's the purpose of doing all this when it could get all reversed when those people come along, if it does switch?
Yeah, I think
You thought about that?
yeah, I did. I think the far left sold the middle of the road Democrats a bill of goods. I think they felt that Americans were ready to usher in the socialism, because they used to hide. The Democratic Party used to hide the fact that they were pushing socialism. They would never call it that. They would have fancy names for it, whatever, right? All kinds of euphemistic terms. But recently, with AOC coming into power and her whole group of the squad, or whatever they call these crazy people,
Call them teenagers.
yeah, I mean, but they came out and they boldly promoted democratic socialism. Bernie Sanders talked about democratic socialism. This is a better way. This is better than capitalism. Capitalism is evil. This, that, the other thing. And I think they overplayed their hand. I don't think Americans are quite ready for that. And I think that's why we're starting to
I would
see the
agree with you.
revolt. I think they honestly thought, because AOC and these other people, they live in this this bubble. They live in these extremely left-wing liberal, like the Bronx, right? Where
Right.
she's from. They live in these ridiculous bubbles. And she comes in and she promotes socialism, and then she gets elected. So she's like, okay, well, if I got elected pushing socialism, well, then the whole party needs to go that direction. America's ready for socialism. And I think they overplayed their hand, and they're going to suffer for it. I mean, when you see a trucker in New Jersey who spent $157 on a campaign, and he dethrones, a very powerful Democrat in New Jersey that's been in politics for 10, 15 years or something like that. And my point to that was, I think the truck driver, he could have pulled a lug nut off of his truck and ran that, and people would have elected the lug nut over. That's how disgusted people are with the current state of affairs. And the Democrats are going to pay for it, but it's like they're going all in. And that's the part that is scary, right? They're like, well, we showed our cards. We showed our true identity. Now it's too late to backtrack. We've got to go all in. And I really think they're counting on all these mail-in ballots and all this other type of stuff to try to at least curb some of this red wave that's coming.
Yeah. So I want to bring another subject up to you that I'd love to hear your counter on. This is, and it brings it a little bit towards the homestead attitude, is land management or food farming techniques. So as you've watched our show and you see us in a very small scale talking about permaculture and things like that, where we're watching these giant farms either have massive diseases in their animals, their soils been just dwindled to low quality or not even effective anymore. And then there's this new wave of people like myself. I'm minor. I mean, I'm trying, but there's other people that have mastered this art. Like I told you, there's people making millions of dollars on 2 acres doing permaculture. And so Have you got a feel or because that a lot of our shortages are not only political, but it's also because of bad players and also bad techniques and processes. And so, can you see us in the future changing our ways at all as far as agriculture?
Well,
Um,
here's the problem with that. First of all, the rest of the world is not regulated like the United States is, right? So we come out with some fantastic insecticide that works extremely well, right? However, maybe it kills the Iowan dung beetle, right? Maybe it's just killing the dung beetles. Well, then
mhm.
the EPA comes in, and the left wing lunatics on the save the world type of people, they come in and they stop that insecticide from being able to be used because of the stupid Iowan dung beetles dying. So, in order for American farmers to be able to compete with the rest of the world, because we can't, China and India and any other country, they don't regulate. They they don't care if their dung beetles die. They don't care if their toads die. They don't care about anything like that. They don't care what gets in their water. They don't care if their own people die. As long as they are mass producing and taking over the world economically, they just don't care. So our
I truly
government,
agree with you.
yeah, our government is our worst enemy because they eliminate the less expensive but more effective insecticides and way of doing things. So the farming industry has to completely. It's like the automobile industry. There's so many regulations on an automobile. You know, a Ford Fusion should cost $10,000, but because of federal regulations, it costs $35,000 because there's and so that's what's happening. So the farming industry is trying to figure out ways where they can stay afloat and somehow compete and still sell their products.
Yeah. Well, I guess
You
one of
know,
the things that bothers me the most, especially out of this global climate stuff and all that, is they're attacking meat growers. And meat growers and agriculture um, actually go together if you blend them. And so, if you got a guy who's just growing corn, has
Mhm.
nothing else but just corn, um, and over the years he keeps adding stuff to his soil, tries to rejuvenate it, and pretty much it's just dead soil. It's just poor soil because of the natural process of how you develop your land. And I'm
Right.
I'm seeing, especially through permaculture, that if we could get our agriculture to change their processes to embrace animals and
Right.
embrace growing and blend them together, which is a proven concept. And there's now big places out that are refurbishing their farmland, they're refurbishing their soils, they're doing it with planting, and they're doing it with their animals, and their quality of their soil, especially back east, they have damaged the soil so bad over there.
Mhm.
So a lot of permaculture folks that come in doing their thing and are proving that um, it, you don't want to get rid of cows. You want to use
Uh,
cows.
you want to use cows, but the left is worried about cow farts and
I
global
know.
warming. It's
Yeah.
insanity.
And the facts are when one volcano puts off more carbon monoxide than in the entire United States in like 20 years.
Right.
It's natural. And so we're
Read,
we're not impacting this stuff. It's
read that
uh
comment by R. Reveler. He's exactly right. He says the most effective pesticide for bed bugs was outlawed. Unexpectedly, there's an explosion of bed bugs. And he probably says that sarcastically, right?
but
Because
he's absolutely right.
yeah. And that is right. There are hotels in Las Vegas, Rob, like these big major hotels. I'm not talking, I'm talking like on the strip
Oh, I
that are
know.
so infected with bed bugs that people are bringing them home. They go on a trip to Las Vegas and they're staying in some like luxury suite. They don't expect to bring home bed bugs, but they're bringing bed bugs home. And
Yeah.
it's unbelievably bad. So yes, he says yes, sarcasm. So you have to. So ironically, I suffered through that. I suffered through bed bugs somehow or another. I don't know if it was from Las Vegas, a trip to Las Vegas or somewhere, because my wife and I like to take, weekend trips and things like that.
Yeah, we do that too.
We had a bed bug, and we found one, and we're like, oh my God, right? And then we found them in 2 rooms. So thank God they were just in the kind of the back of the house, but I had to have half of my house cranked up to it was about 500 degrees in my house, I think, or what was it? No, it was 175 degrees in my house for 8 hours, and that's the only way you can kill them. And that cost me $2,500 for these damn little creatures that they're from hell, these little things. And so yeah, would I rather spend $30 on a pesticide and wipe them out? Of course I would. But the EPA came in and they probably said that, it's affecting something else, or it's just nonsense. It's pure nonsense. And then I'm sure the government somewhere along the way, these bad actors probably invested into those heaters that heat your house up.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. And that's not a conspiracy. They force some sort of segment of the economy to explode. And they just happen to invest in it. John Boehner from Ohio, he was one. John Boehner preached against legalized pot for decades. The minute it got legalized, guess who's a huge investor into legalized marijuana? John Boehner.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of techniques we're doing over here are actually are being utilized by those people, especially the hydroponics.
Yeah.
And by the way, to answer the question to, is it Reveler? Our Reveler? I used to do a lot of RV travel, and I still have my RV for those that watch the channel on a regular basis. And yes, Sherry and I are starting to get the itch a little bit to start using the RV a little bit, but we're saving it for John and his wife to come up and stay in it first. And when they give us the thumbs up, maybe we'll start traveling again. But yeah, we're what's this? Oh yeah, okay. He's answering to your question.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I did want to at least address that. No, we haven't totally given up on RVing. We're kind of enjoying a different part of our life right now, but we will. We're also caregivers, if people don't know that. So we're kind of more homebound than we were before. And so we take care of Sherry's mom. And so that kind of made us more homebound. So it's like, well, if we are going to be homebound, what can we do instead of just sitting around watching football games and drinking beer, which sounds kind of good. But it says, well, let's change our lives a little. Let's buy the parents' place and let's really dive into some of the things we believe in. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing today. But
awesome.
But yeah, I have a lot of longtime RVers that still watch our channel. And of course, I'm not talking about RVing too much. And I used to have a show called RV Talk Radio. And I was always at the opposition. Now, I do have some big opinions about RVing right nowadays because it's getting overpopulated. Yeah. And the RV parks are getting very expensive. And there's a lot of politics in these mega resorts. Like you get tons of them down there. And in fact, most of the RV parks down there are turning into the big thing down in your area is the RV parks are like 70% park models. They're not even RVs anymore.
Yeah.
So, times are changing.
And the young kids are really into this thing now. So they're going out and they're buying these older, like 1970s, 1980s RVs, and they're putting a couple grand into them, getting them running, getting them fixed up, and they're crossing the country like the old hippies of the 60s, right?
Yeah.
And so they're kind of, and it's kind of cool. I'm not complaining about it because I think young people need to go out and tour the United States and see what a great country we have, right? These people that say there's no trees, right? We're cutting all the trees down. Well, yeah, maybe you ought to take a ride through Tennessee. And in 10 miles, you'll realize there's a lot of trees out there, right?
Yeah, I was like, we're watching a show by Justin Rhodes. He did he released a show where he did what's called he took an RV and he did what he called a Great American Farm Tour. and he went to every single state. In fact, he flew up to Alaska and he flew over to Hawaii. So he actually hit all 50 states to look at farming and what people are doing. And
Wow.
even me watching that, I have this perception of what like Illinois looks like. I think of Chicago and a bunch of killers, right? It's luscious, beautiful farms over there.
Yes.
And so so if you don't get out and hit the road and go see these beautiful states, they all have something to offer.
That's
And
right.
so there was kind of like it was enlightening to know that Maine had some beautiful places that the homestead. And it was great to see in Illinois or North Dakota or South Dakota, people are doing whatever they want to do with homesteading or being more private or secluded in these beautiful states. And and if you don't get out and see this stuff, you have this perception that, all of New York looks like New York, city.
Yeah.
No, it
Right.
doesn't. New York is a beautiful state. It's got beautiful farms and all kinds of stuff. But if you don't get out there and then seeing these young people go out there, I think that's a wonderful thing.
I think it is too. And I think they're starting to realize that everything that they've been told by their previous generation is crap. Right? The previous generation, they all grew up in the concrete jungles.
It's one thing is really nice to see is like a millennial. I know millennials the most. And meet ones that have kind of flipped and they've seen the world and they've done stuff and then become brilliant. I mean, they become great business people. They become talented and doing virtual work and being clever with their money and all kinds of stuff. And so it's very nice to see that. And it's because they got more worldly. They didn't stay in their bubble. And
Right.
once they get out of their bubbles, these kids are brilliant. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, they get outside of their little concrete jungle with their little green area, and they realize that, wow, this country is amazing, right?
Yeah, and then you see these young people bloom and or young adults, and so and then to me that's when I kind of go, oh, there's hope.
Yeah, I know, right?
The problem is there needs to be more of those young people to go. And if it takes an RV, go do it, man, do it. But unfortunately, it's getting harder. It's getting more expensive and very crowded. I mean, by the millions. And campgrounds are really hard to get into now. And
you got to plan ahead. So it's kind of going full circle, kind of back to the whole prepping mindset. I think this is a lesson, whether it's RVing or prepping or whatever. You can't just shoot from your hip anymore. You gotta take some responsibility and plan ahead.
Definitely. And by the way, in what I'm doing here, there's a lot of young adults they're blazing the trail for homesteading and permaculture. Some of these young adults that get into permaculture are amazing. And we're talking young, in their 20s, 30s, and starting their own little homestead, whether it's a half acre to 5 acres. Some of them are buying 100 acres. And how they buy it, I don't know. Hopefully they got a rich dad or something. But then they apply themselves and to that stuff, and it's amazing to watch. They're showing the world there is a better way to grow food, a better way to live, and a better way to be more in tune with the world, with the earth, growing food of all sorts, animals and vegetables together.
Right.
And so that's why I'm really proud to see the young people doing so. And we're out of time, because when I talk to you, our time goes by fast. And so I got a minute.
Well, I want to thank you again for having me on the show, and a great conversation. And our Reveler, he's my kind of guy.
I've never seen him come up on my live chats before. I wish I get more on my live chats, but we're still a really new show. And then of course all the great comments come in after the show, and it's like, oh, I would have loved to talk about that. So, but if I was more consistent, it'd probably be better too. So anyway, thank you very much, John, for being on the show. And I got to scoot and stay on for a second, and we'll get this closed out. So anyway, thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.